you still awake? One. Okay, we have one person, three people still awake. Great. Oh, wow, someone's actually even physically capable. Cool. So, how do we get all of this great research into people? So I have these are some really incredible people here, and if I read their bios, it might take the entire panel because they've done so much amazing stuff. But I'll read very short versions really quickly, and if I miss stuff, please don't hate me. Okay. Vera in the middle there is co-director of the Rochester Aging Research Center and a world leader in the biology of longevity and genome stability, perhaps the best known for her pioneering work on long-lived species like the naked mole rat, the bowhead whale, and a bunch of others. Her research integrates comparative genomics, cancer resistance, epigenetic maintenance to uncover mechanisms of aging and extend health span. Fair? Okay. Vadim, Gladyshev, right here next to me, is a professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, which still exists, and is recognized internationally for his contributions to redox biology, aging mechanisms, the pursuit of interventions that extend lifespan. His laboratory combines biochemical, genomic, and evolutionary approaches to defining molecular signatures of aging and health, with particular focuses recently on aging clocks and aging biomarkers. Good? Okay. And last and most, we have Alex Trapp, who heads the computational biology team at Retro Biosciences, full disclosure, company that I work with also, turning massive data sets from experiments into conclusions that inform the next experiments. Previously, he was in both Vadim's lab and in Vera's lab. So this is a very tightly woven panel here. At Harvard, among many other works, he co-developed SC-Age, the first single-cell epigenetic clock, enabling precise measurement of biological age at single-cell resolution. Okay, so we have these incredible people here. Let's make the most of the time. I have a few questions here that I can ask them, but you probably also have some questions that I haven't thought of or that are even better. So just to start off, comparative biology. Vera, what can we learn from animals with particularly long lifespans and adaptations to help humans?
Oh, yes, thank you. This is a great question. So what can we learn from them? I think in the beginning, people, or maybe some people still doubt if aging can be modified. Or maybe it can be modified just a little bit, which wouldn't be bad at all if, just live extra 5 years. But can it be modified in a more substantial way? So what we can learn from animals is that it actually can, because evolution has achieved it multiple times. You can find, for example, even species that are very similar, mouse and naked mole rat. Mouse lives 3 years maximum, well, maybe a little, maybe 4, but usually less. Naked mole rat can live 40 years. And they're very similar rodents. So it's possible. And like other species, think about, well, we humans can make it to 80, maximum is 120. But bowhead whale can live 200 years, so double human lifespan. So the differences are amazing, but even if you think between mouse and whale, it's 100-fold increase. And evolution has achieved it, so it means that this is possible. So I think this is a very important message, that it is achievable. And then we can find how it has happened, and there are many examples, to find specific molecular adaptations, how it happened. And then we can implement those. And I would say that probably the most exciting developments in biology happened when we learned how to use something that already evolved, like CRISPR or Ozempic also came from Gila monster ideas. So I think it's like a treasure trove what we can learn from animals.
Which do you think we could actually translate to humans?
Well, probably a lot of different things. So, for example, I started with naked mole rat. We found the specific molecule that is very abundant in naked mole rat tissues. And then we made a mouse with the gene from naked mole rat and showed that they live longer and they have less cancer, they have less inflammation. And then we looked for small molecules that can achieve the same result in human cells. So very, very translatable. It's like if you look in the animals, you can find drug targets, and then of course you can target them by many different means and many different modalities, but they provide this information what to target. So this hyaluronan gene in naked mole rat would be one example. Another example from the bowhead whale, we found they have a protein that's induced by cold protein, let's call it this way, that they have 100 times more of this protein. So now maybe we can learn how to induce the same protein in humans. And what it does for the whale, besides the cold, it helps maintain their genome, prevent mutations. So yeah, if we find, well, we can think of gene therapy, we can think of small molecules that induce this protein. Again, very straightforward path to implementing it. And not to speak, well, whale can live with, 2 feet of blubber and all the size and remain very healthy. Maybe we can also find strategy how we can live with this much adiposity and remain healthy. Not that I'm advocating for that, but there is just endless list. And often when we find exact molecular target, then it's fairly straightforward to translate.
So should I put like an ice bath in my office and just hang out in really cold water all the time? Is that?
Well, I don't know if all the time we have to figure out the best regimen, but I think, well, people are doing cold swim, but mostly because it makes you feel good, yeah, when you get out of them. But maybe it also promotes your DNA repair. We have to find exactly how the right regimen to do that, but the idea came from the whale.
Cool. Well, I hope some of these actually make it into people and give them healthier, longer lives. If there's anything that we can do, the folks here, to help with that, then I hope you'll ask and that they will comply.
I could add a little bit.
Please, yeah.
So to me also long-lived species are very useful because they allow us to understand principles of lifespan control. What we don't understand, how exactly nature controls lifespan and whether this approach is similar to what we find in the lab. In fact, if we look at kind of global, at least at the omics level, or multimodal level, then we see that longevity across species is very different from longevity due to interventions that we find in the lab, whether it's genetic manipulation or lifespan, lifestyle strategies, or pharmacological dietary. So long-lived species achieve this exceptional longevity somehow in different ways than what we study. I think it provides an opportunity to understand it and utilize in the future.
I think to add on to that a little bit as well, I feel like it's dramatically understudied, so I think most of the work has been done by Vera and Vadim and a few other labs, and there's some really exciting initiatives. Todd White is leading one of these, and Fauna Bio as well, looking at how comparative biology eventually can make its way into humans, so we just need more work on this.
Cool. Okay, I want to ask you a ton of questions about that, but I'm going to restrain myself. Okay, you talked about how the type of regulation of aging that occurs sort of naturally within these populations is different from the responses to interventions that we give. How do you know that? And how, basically, I guess I'm wondering, how do we measure aging?
Okay, is it to me? It's two different questions.
No fair asking what aging is. But.
Which one?
So when I say, how do you measure aging, I'm predicting that your answer is going to be, well, what do you mean by aging? And then I'm really hosed.
Oh, okay. I will try to start answering, and then we can maybe clarify. So to me, aging is like it's like a gravity. You go from like a river going from mountain to ocean, and aging drives it, which means that it's a kind of fundamental default process. There are no drivers. There are no major drivers of it. It's just there. And then we build a strategy against it. And the strategies can be many. So we could build something like a lake when a river doesn't flow. It would be equivalent like planaria or like a hydra, for example. Or we could build a dam, like a freezing, similar to cryonics, like a glacier. Or we could use like certain terrain to slow down the process. Or we could maybe use a pump to go up the stream. It's like the invention of germline, for example. In the next generation, we kind of return back. Or rejuvenation, like Yamanaka factors. So there are many strategies. And so then how to measure it? And so measuring is very difficult because we discuss in the field this concept of biological age, but it's a latent variable, and so it cannot be exactly measured, of course. And there are various ways like people invent to measure, whether it's like rate of change, or you look at the measure like functional decline, or you train like biomarkers based on time to death, or like you quantify entropy and things like that. And there's no like one like a simple or like universal approach. So any approach that you take would be like a slice or projection from this space. So in the end, it's going to be probably multimodal kind of approaches, combining things together, which probably don't exist yet.
So how long will it take for us to have actual ways of measuring aging?
I don't know. It's a community effort. To me, actually, this is the maybe one of two most important developments in the field: the ability to quantify aging, even if imperfect. Currently, it's like a glass half full, not half empty, but half full, because like so many different things clarify it right away. For example, all these like great evolutionary theories and demography studying longevity through like mortality, but then we build a clock for adult ages and look for early ages. We say, oh, they still ticks, like at 15 years, 5 years, 1 year still tick, embryonic still ticks. The aging is already there. And how does it go like against all these evolutionary theories, like antagonistic pleiotropy, when aging is supposed to start after completion of development?
It's so complicated. Okay. I think we're going to come back to that. But in the meantime, maybe AI is our savior. Is there some way that computation and AI can come to the rescue and figure all this stuff out for us?
For sure, yeah. I think building on what Vadim said as well, I think AI will be particularly important for when we try to measure aging and when we try to bring all together all these modalities that each tell a slightly different story about what's happening. And if you only ever look at one, you don't get part of that story. So, yeah, I think one thing to mention in the beginning is that AI in biology in general is extremely far behind AI in other domains. So, for example, I'm sure everyone here is using some form of large language model, ChatGPT. What it can do with voice, with images, with text is remarkable. I mean, I would describe it as magic at this point. There are very clear ways in which it works, but we still don't understand a lot of the things there. With biology, it's even worse. There's proof of concepts like AlphaFold and some of the work that we've done at Retro as well in engineering proteins with AI, but it's still so early. And I think one of the huge bottlenecks there is data generation and high-quality data generation, and then understanding what to do with that data. And this is just really kind of what people need to focus on. Technology development as a whole for longevity, I think it's very important, but specifically for the applications of AI to biology and longevity.
And I would like to add to it what we discussed about different species, and Vadim also mentioned that they may have this kind of a blueprint of longer life. So I think this is where AI would help identify it, because we see that long-lived species have unique maybe genes, proteins, metabolites, and that's a lot of data. So what we hope that we can use AI to try to figure out what's actual makeup of a long-lived creature, and then especially if we talk about metabolites, these are molecules that can be put into drugs very readily. So if we find out sort of the minimal set of metabolites that would result in making a longer-lived human, that may be probably the best intervention. It's interesting that with current interventions that are usually target single process, we can achieve, at least in experimental animals like mice, maybe 10% lifespan extension, but we cannot make a mouse live 100 years like a human. But maybe with these approaches, when we combine several things, we could get there.
What do you think are the most, like bringing it back to the short term, what do you think are the most immediate applications of AI tools in the research and work that you're doing now?
I think we've chosen at Retro to work a lot on proteins, largely again because of this data problem. A lot of proteins have been mapped, and we understand their sequences and their functions. People often think about AlphaFold as this remarkable achievement, and it is, but it's also built on the backbone of billions of dollars and decades of work generating the data sets necessary to train these models. So proteins is a natural kind of first step. Hopefully we can then go to RNA, to DNA, and then to different species and things like that. But yeah, it's still in the works, I think.
I think we should try to already build a health model, like AI health. Like we see what happened with LLMs. The data is still coming, but I think early models already can be built. So this will allow like more combinatorial approaches to interventions, like combination of like drugs, lifestyles, and diets, maybe initially.
So this is a model, like a digital twin kind of thing, like a model of a human somehow, so that it acts like a human, and you feed it carbohydrates and its blood sugar goes up, or like, what does the model do?
The model would be a model transition from younger to older state, kind of in a multimodal way.
Nice, I see. So intrinsically it models aging internally to the model.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, I'd love to see that. Who's going to build it?
I don't know. Another
I
AI.
mean, should we make it? How hard is it?
Well, I think if we need a billionaire, just 1 billion is enough.
Just one? Oh, I'm raising $1 billion right now. So
Yeah, let's do it.
Is that what I should spend it on? The entire $1 billion on Vadim's model, but then it actually saves the world. So maybe that's a good bet.
Well, I would like to build a model integrating, proteome, metabolome data from, let's say, 100 or 200 different species of animals of different lifespan, and then to develop like the recipe for a long-lived mammalian organism.
I think it's not impossible that occurs. I think these large language models have been shown in some way to be like the best compressive like algorithms in a way, if you want to think about them that way. So if you can compress what it means to age and what it means to live longer into a vector that you can actually do something about, then maybe we can extract something meaningful from it.
Yeah, I think can be done. Yeah? Not in a very far future.
What's the price tag?
Price tag.
Well, but he wants to build a model. It's $1 billion.
Yeah, well, maybe less.
Okay, that sounds more affordable.
There might be more, too.
Okay. All right, well, maybe it takes $7 trillion. You got to do it. The economy has like many trillions in it, and the economy is all made up of people, and all the people want to stay alive. So even if it was $7 trillion to build such a model and then it solved health, considering there's like, I don't know, what, like 300 trillion in the economy or something, it seems like, I mean, if I were just from first principles, if I were an alien orbiting around the planet deciding like, what should this species spend its resources on? It seems like a reasonable thing. We'll keep trying to convince the people who control the trillions on that one. Okay, so what's next? What do you think are the next sort of 3 amazing things that are going to come out of your work? Give away your next 4 papers.
Yeah, I don't know. The papers it's just a small milestone. Yeah. Like in the bigger things, I think besides like biomarkers, which is obvious current ones, biomarkers and interventions, like which could be immediately applied, the next would be probably replacement. And there are many issues here. Like, for example, you have a body with, like, replace few young organs. We have no idea actually how the organs interact, because organs also, they are in a different way. Like, we look at different people, but also when we are young and old, we are different too. So this kind of compatibility is not a resolved issue. And also, I'm very excited about rejuvenation. We actually study in a lab heterochronic parabiosis. We also discovered this embryonic rejuvenation, which is the first, the only natural rejuvenation event. Actually, Alex studied that one. And it would be really interesting to understand how exactly cells are rejuvenated. They seem to divide and become younger. How does it happen? And can we utilize this approach like in somatic cells? It's completely unclear.
Right, nature's already solved this rejuvenation thing.
Nature has solved, yes, several times.
Yeah, we have 30-year-old people who get together and have some fun, and then a 0-year-old biological object is created out of that. A bunch of years are lost there. Okay, and so, also, could somebody please get Cassini out of detention? I just really appreciate that. There's just a researcher at Harvard working in a group that is in part focused on understanding this germline rejuvenation reset phenomenon, who just got nabbed at the border and thrown in Louisiana. Would be good to get her back working on longevity research again. Grab me afterward if you want to learn more. Okay, so
I would mention that she's a researcher in the Leon Peshkin's lab and Mark Kirshner in the Department of Systems Biology. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I know her personally as well. She's a great scientist.
Great scientist, yeah. Great scientists should not be sitting around doing nothing. Okay, so those are, how do we do that? Like, how are those going to come? So you're specifically working on them in your lab?
We do work, on trying to rejuvenate like organs, like put like old organ, young body, and see how it's rejuvenated, or maybe find some common features. Rejuvenation, heterochronic parabiosis, clearly a strategy to rejuvenate, and embryonic rejuvenation. There are many examples already like this, but we don't understand. Like, we mostly work as a field. We work on aging. How exactly? Because obviously aging is irreversible. There are so many kind of transitions, like these microscopic transitions, like simple way, like mutations. Mutations happen, it's irreversible. But same way, mutation, byproducts, ECM, and so on. But at the same time, we could target a system so it becomes younger. So it's not exactly in the same young state as it was before, when it was, chronologically younger, but it's younger. So, and that rejuvenation, I think it's possible. And
these experiments are happening all over the place, right? But like, new organs are being put into humans all the time, and they're not the same age as the humans that they came from, right? Or like the organs donors and the organ recipients aren't the same ages. Is anybody studying the effects on the organs or on the recipients of the differences in age? Do you know?
Well, people do. I think there was epigenetic clocks applied to transplanted organs. Well, I think generally the bottom line is always best to get a young organ. Old organ, has some negative effect. Then, well, can young organ like really affect other tissues? That's all a bit complicated because we don't know what are sort of the central control. And also to follow up on Vadim's answer about heterochronic parabiosis. So we are very excited right now about extracellular vesicles because this may be one modality of how these different organs versus plasma circulation can signal to each other. So it's like another way for cells to talk. Cells secrete those vesicles stuffed with different biologically active molecules. And we are very excited. We are studying them also in the context of different species. to understand what's inside those vesicles, and maybe we can take the same signal and just inject into people instead of making blood transfusion, which of course has its difficulties. But maybe if we find exactly what's in these vesicles that's important, we can start with that.
Yeah, to echo a little bit on what Vadim and Vera said, I think replacement is pretty exciting, and it's cool to see more and more interest in this. I think it was quite a niche field to begin with. It's great to see even programs at RFH now with Jean and Beth working there. And so we're working quite heavily on replacement approaches so far in the micro replacements, so thinking about replacing cells, which is often easier than replacing whole tissues, but eventually it would be super cool to also be able to replace whole tissues. And then the other side, which is more what Vera was talking about, is the rejuvenation side, so understanding what there is in these vesicles and these other approaches that we can use directly in the body without having to replace the cells. And I think generally as a paradigm for aging, we're still very much in this process of understanding the process itself of aging and also what these interventions do. And it's hard to intervene if you don't really understand the process, which I think why Vadim is very interested in this as well. So I would encourage more people to study the process itself and then figure out what happens and how we can intervene. Because if you don't understand, it's hard to intervene.
Oh, and I want to add one more exciting direction that hasn't been mentioned. So we are very interested in dark genome. What is dark genome? So in our genome there is a lot of junk, about 90% or 98% seems like junk. And people paid little attention to it, but what we discovered, and others a few years ago, that this dark genome consists of virus-like sequences that actually as we get older, they become active. So when we are young, we keep them quiet, but when we get older, they become active. They start to be expressed. They can even start looking like viruses to the cell. And that drives inflammation, that drives other bad things. Like the whole system gets clogged with these junk pieces of our genome that now raise their ugly head. And there is a drug that targets them. It was not developed against these elements. It was developed against HIV and real viruses, but it can also suppress those parts of our genome. They're called retroelements. And it even lowers epigenetic age. Looks very promising. So we are very interested in developing interventions against those elements.
Yeah, briefly to add on to that as well. I think retrotransposons pulsars are super exciting, and there's increasing evidence that they might be a core aspect of what happens during reprogramming, also deeply understudied. They make up the majority of the genome, so it would be cool to intervene on those.
What if, just going a little out on a limb here, but what if somebody, in this Craig Venter sort of way, just sort of reprinted the human genome but deleted all of those viral sequences? And so, it was like a 10 times smaller genome, which for starters would just be more convenient. I mean, we'd lose a lot of weight. We're carrying around trillions of extra copies of viral genomes. But would that make a healthier, happier, longer-lived human?
I mean, not necessarily, because there are so many of them. Something like this was attempted by Jeff Booker, but using baker's yeast. They also have these elements, not as many as we do. They have smaller genomes, so they synthesize artificial yeast genome without all these elements, and these were very sickly yeast. You wouldn't make a good bread with them. So which may be because we have so many, so some of them already became a permanent fixture, and maybe they even have some function. But those are like more ancient elements. But then more recent elements are more selfish. So we would have to be very judicious which ones to delete, like not all of them, but maybe some of them. But maybe if not delete, then at least come up with a way to silence them very well.
And I think some elements are actually essential, at least in mammals during development, right? So that's another feature that we have to study.
Yes, we have to understand them better. So like imagine 98% of our genome, we just don't understand at all. Are they good? Are they bad? What exactly are they doing? But at least we know that those drugs that inhibit them lower epigenetic age. So that's a good starting point.
Okay, so those drugs already exist? Should we all here just go ask our doctor for some?
Well, they're not without side effects, so I would not, because these drugs were developed against HIV, which is a very serious disease. So the threshold for safety is not the same place where it would be for anti-aging intervention. So that there is some toxicities, although better drugs are being developed. And maybe we need to develop newer drugs that would be specific against those elements and not against like, all retroviruses. So I think the existing ones may still be beneficial for certain applications, maybe not just for HIV, maybe there are some of them that people could start taking, but not anyone, especially first generation drugs have toxicities.
Okay. Well, so we have a couple of the world's most leading researchers on aging biology sitting right here in front of us, and 3 minutes and 36 seconds left on this panel. So surely you have some questions about how we can go forward in this industry. So go for it. Are we doing the formal mic thing? Yeah. Meeting in the middle, ooh, that's very efficient. Impressive.
We're all about saving time. So just a question, I really liked your metaphor, Vadim, about gravity and likening it to gravity. And I think Irina yesterday said it was really about noise and it's a form of entropy. I'm curious how that plays into clock development and your view of this. Like, are we trying to measure noise as if it wasn't noise, or just what are your opinions on that?
Well, to me, it's a difficult question. There are different elements of noise here. So one way is we could look for like a level of disorder, like entropy, with understanding that it's different in different systems. It could be different in different kind of biological layers, like transcriptome, the methylome, the proteome, but also different across organs. And so at the same time, organs, they interact with one another and cells interact with one another. So if some outlier is kind of pulled back, becomes altered. So that's kind of one level of noise. Another level of noise, if you look at the networks. Networks also, there's inherent noise, like the way they operate, like networks and also circuits. But it's a different type of noise already. Like, for example, if you look, there's the one preprint from Giro. They call it effective temperature. So that's completely different type of noise, which also needs to be taken into account. So, but ultimately, yes, we need to understand kind of to quantify. Maybe the best way is entropy still, to quantify the progression through life course, which is very difficult so far because any of the omics-based methods, they capture it, but only in part, and they also capture something else at the same time. So this causality is still not fully resolved. We published a paper last year on these causal clocks, but it's a kind of causality-enriched clocks, not fully resolved yet.
Hi, Irina. Okay, do we have another question? Okay, go for it.
One more question, by the way. One more question.
Okay, good. You were just on a panel, so I want to ask that guy right behind you. Yeah.
Thanks. Are any of you familiar with Michael Levin and the work that he's doing with electrical signaling and how basically cells have an intelligence, and even cells that are predetermined to become cancerous with DNA mutations, when they're basically held together by the signaling between the cells of the healthy cells, they never develop cancer. I think, we're still looking at things in a very molecular way, almost like,
But try to stick to the actual interrogative aspect of your question, because we only have. So, have any of you heard of Michael Levin? Go for it.
I heard and I read his papers and discussed with him as well. So yes, you're right. So he tried to capture these emergent properties, like the cell collective as opposed to like individual, like molecular levels. But which is a useful approach. I think it's still, we need to still find out whether it works or not in practical ways. But also I would stress that in aging there are no major, like, it's not like only molecular, only emergent properties, only cell collectives. It's all together that progresses, and that's still very difficult to capture this together.
What we're working on is really difficult, so we all have to work together and work really hard. And there's a huge amount of good to be created from it. So thanks for all of your work. Thanks for taking the time today, and for the place on stage, Dylan and company. So how about a big round of applause for our speakers.